listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Your hosts, Nate and John, cover their shared history with the band, discover new music together, and cover the farthest reaches of the Deep Purple family tree and beyond. Here's Nate and John now.
Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 346, Roger Glover at 80. And coming to you from the suburbs of Chicago, where the basement is almost ready. I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, I'm your co-host, John. Merry Hughes Missoween Matola.
Hughes Missoween. Because we're closer to Christmas. Well, this will be out closer to Christmas than Halloween, but
yeah, but that might give you an idea as to when we're recording.
Yes, the exact day, in fact.
So I figured I'd just mush it all together.
Yeah, it's early in the morning. We shouldn't get any trick-or-treaters interrupting the episode at 8:30 a.m.
I will say though that it's in the it's in the rear view by the time of listening, but I do look forward to someday being part of a handing out candy. I don't. My parents live on a main road. I live in a condo, so it's like we never really had that experience. But being part of it somewhere, through family or getting a house someday, like I'm all about, like, I want to be that dude that gives out like the full size candy bars.
Yeah.
So
we started doing that a few years ago because we just don't get that many trick or treaters. When we first moved here, when we first moved here, we did. And then I don't know if the routes just changed, and we're down a cul-de-sac, so kids are probably just staying on the main routes. Although if you start hitting all those cul-de-sacs, you can do pretty good. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, but we just started getting the big bars because we didn't have to get that many, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're thinking of where your parents live. Not only are they on a main road, but the houses are kind of spread apart. So it would be like, it wouldn't be the best bang for your buck for a trick-or-treater. Yeah. But it is fun. It's fun going to the door, especially the little kids, Well,
I hear that trunk or treat is the big thing now. So
yeah, we did that we haven't done it for a few years, but when we first moved here, when the kids were in daycare, we would go, all the cars pull up and you decorate your trunks and everyone just goes from car to car. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gearing up here. We're in the home stretch to Christmas. Our Christmas episode will be coming out in a few weeks, if you can believe it.
Oh boy, everybody!
Boy, let's see I guess it's time to think about what we're gonna do.
I do.
Rich sent over a good idea, but I'm like, we'll have to talk about it in the chat to see if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, I get excited about that. I like the tradition we started of having everybody together, like a big Christmas gathering, which it really is. So
yeah, it's like the company Christmas party. It's fun.
Yeah, I love it.
But hey, folks, if you want to support the Deep Purple Podcast and make sure there's something extra in our stocking this year, you can do so in a number of ways. One is by going to our Patreon and supporting the show. You may have noticed when you started up the podcast, you didn't hear any ads, and you're not going to hear any ads midway, and you're not going to hear any ads at the end. 100% ad-free, and that's because since day one, we've been supported by you, the listener. So those listeners that feel like they have gotten something out of the show, choose to give us something back and help support us, pay our bills, and give us a little extra to get the albums we review and the books and the concert tickets and all that sort of stuff. So a big thank you to all of them. As a patron, you get access to our patrons-only Discord channel, our rating spreadsheet, invites for our live stream episodes, links to submissions for all of our album rankings episodes, as well as access to our Too Hot for YouTube forbidden episodes via Patreon. And that's, we once a month we do a topless episode that we put in the Patreon feed. No, we don't do that. I gotta say no, because it's gonna strain the Patreon servers as all the people start signing up or canceling.
Well, I mean, I have been upping my workouts, so I mean, I could.
Oh, that's good. Well, you can go topless. I'll put on an extra shirt.
I'm getting a few extra workouts in there, so maybe I can show off my buffness.
But speaking of
extra bucks,
speaking of patrons, it's not a new patron, newish, but Matt R responded to the inquiry I usually send along whenever anybody answers, and I think he might have just missed the email, so he's a little delayed, but that's okay. Matt R is going by Now in Vegas. I find that sometimes with a Patreon, maybe it's because they just send other emails and you think they're junk. It's hard to communicate through the Patreon messages feature. Like most people are really delayed. So if you ever want to just reach out to me directly, just email me or send me a message or whatever. But so Matt in Vegas writes, sorry for the delay in responding to your question. I had no idea. It's probably too late, but Matt in Vegas is fine. I think it was around 1973 I discovered Deep Purple thanks to my older brother and his friends. Smoke on the Water was playing all the time, and it was then I wanted to play guitar and luckily still do. Then I watched the ABC concert for Cal Jam, and that did it for me. I think I discovered your show by accident. I was listening to a Rush podcast, and I was strolling underneath the show on my phone, and under You Might Also Consider, I found your show. Couldn't believe it. A Deep Purple podcast? My favorite band growing up. I'm 61, and there is a podcast for this band, Jackpot. This was about 4 years ago. And thanks to your show, I discovered Scott's show. 2 Deep Purple shows. Your show, you guys do an awesome job. Thanks for all you do. I just listened to the Made in Japan remix episode and decided I need to buy this, but unfortunately, it appears to be sold out. Thanks again, Matt. Yeah, and I've heard that from a few people that one just kind of sold out, and I don't know if they're going to make more or what, but I shouldn't have opened mine. I could have just could have. Usually I accidentally buy 2 because I forget I pre-ordered it. But this time I think I only had 1.
Interesting how basically there are a lot of people like his story is exactly your story, looking for a Deep Purple podcast, except you were just like, well, all right, then I'm just gonna make my own.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I'm saving a lot of people a lot of work because they don't have to make one now.
Yeah, but I mean that's cool though. I mean it's not surprising to hear. I mean, that's what you were doing. I'm sure a lot of people are doing that, but it's great to hear. It's always great to hear somebody tell that story. Is like, hey, I was looking for this. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Because I mean, think about, and we'll talk about it when we start talking about Roger, right? It's like how we grew up and, our feelings about Deep Purple and the family tree and just having, hearing anybody talk about it or review it or whatever. It's it's nice to have something out there. I would have thought there would be a lot more, but just us and Scott.
Well, there's so I've taken my wife just had knee surgery, and I'm taking her in for appointments and everything because I'm off of work this week, and she's making appointments at the desk, and she's like, oh, that day you're recording, so okay, this day you're recording then, so let's do it at this time, and that's what we're doing today right after this show. And then she goes in the thing, and then the guy's like, recording? What are you recording? And I'm like, geez. Because it's like, I don't know, there's something about like when you're like in the wild talking to like a random person, you're like, I don't want anybody to know I have a podcast. Because it's also like you just get that blank stare when they, what's it about? And I'm like, oh God. But he was actually knew a bit about the band. He like knew Ian Gillan. He's like, it's Ian Gillan and David Coverdale, and I was like, oh, okay, this guy knows some stuff. And then we started talking music, and he actually had a podcast a while back, and I didn't ask what it was about, but he was like, I should get that started back up. And then
I think it's cool, but it's like at the same time, it's like I feel like like you said, when you're in the wild, you feel like if you're just like, oh yeah, I have a podcast, the response is going to be like, nerd.
Well, yeah, and also like, well, yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
But here you are. But to your point about discovering the show, you discover it now and you realize you've got 300 and almost 350 episodes to listen to. That's got to be I know when I've discovered podcasts that have been around for a while, that's like such a treat because it takes forever and you've always got something to listen to. Like I loved when I was catching up on Pot of Thunder to just be like, it was unlimited. I was just like, I could just keep listening and it's never going to run out. But then it ran out. But so many memories of like, you know, like certain Kiss songs I hear now. I think of like, oh yeah, I was mowing the lawn when I heard that one, or I was driving to work, or, you know, just thinking of what you were doing. But yeah, it's great. It's cool that it you know, and he was asking me a lot of questions. I was telling him, yeah, I've been able to meet people from all over the world, met members of the band, all this sort of stuff. And he said, that's the great thing about podcasts. It's so niche, you know, you'll find your crew. Like if this was a, I don't know, you know, a local radio show, which is always how I kind of imagined this years ago. It'd be so cool to do a Deep Purple radio show and pick things from all the extended audience. But like, what are the chances that within the signal of your radio tower you'd have enough people that wanted to listen to that?
Right.
Before you could conceive of a podcast. And now with podcasting, it's like you could easily find 1,000 people that will sign up and be interested in the subject matter.
Yeah, much further reach, much better.
Yes. So speaking of patrons at the executive level, joining us at the in memoriam tier, the wonderful late Gerald Jerry Kelly and family, always remembering him and the good times and good conversations we had over the years. The $25 Uncommon Man tier, we have Ovis Nakvi and Purple Maniac. At the 20 is Plenty tier, we have Alan. At the 10-pound Good Doctor tier, Dr. Mike Catan. At the Turn It Up to $11 tier, Clay Wambacher, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Mickelstein, Will Porter, PhDPP, and Michael Don't Call Him Bradford Bagford. At the $10 Someone Came tier, Ryan M., Jeff Bryce, Victor Campos, Better Call Saul Evans. And Peter from Illinois. And at the Deep Thoughts by John Matola tier, Mr. Fielding Fowler.
And now, Deep Thoughts by John Matola.
Oops. Is Glenn huge?
Sorry, a little bit of a misfire there.
You know, it's amusing when you play the wrong music for the person because it's like, I don't know, it's really funny because you're like, that's not Fielding's theme song.
I've really refined and streamlined and come up with this great system for
have you
for I have, but the problem is it's still a human, and that human is me that's in charge of it, so it's not 100% foolproof. And hey, you know, we're not using AI here. Actually, if we're using AI, it would have been it would be terrible. And there's this great Instagram that my wife's been sharing with me, and it's this guy, and he's a director, and he just gets these AI things, and he gives them prompts. He's like, but he pretends he's a director, and he's like auditioning them for roles, and it's so wild what the AIs will do and how they respond. And he'll just be like, okay, that was like really weird. Could you not do that next time, or do this? And they just do the craziest things. We're just doing this one for like this home improvement show, and it's like, okay, you guys are gonna be on this home improvement show, and the tagline is something like, let's do it. So you guys are gonna say that, and like the woman's talking, and she all of a sudden just starts talking in the man's voice, and then goes back to her voice, and she has a hammer, and then it just like disappears, and they're giving each other high fives, and he's like, okay, it's really weird that you keep high fiving each other. Could you not do that? And then they do this like really weird, like they and they do this weird bow. And he's like, okay, you guys are acting like super weird. Could you stop that? It's definitely worth checking out just to see how crappy this AI stuff is. Yes, we're also going to thank our Hall of Fame members, of course, starting with
Rich Yangui? Shaylo? Who the hell is that?
And Jörg Planer and Norman Weichelbaum. Thank you so much to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. Upcoming rankings show. I think we need your rankings by today-ish, but you could probably get them later. But start thinking about getting us your burn rankings. We really need them. I'll send out some reminders so we can really get moving with that one and be ready. And then just one little thing before we move on. And that is postcards from the edge of Connecticut. And this one's coming to us from, that doesn't look like Connecticut. That looks like the skyline, and a skyline I know in Massachusetts. And it says on the back, Dunster House, 1930, Harvard University, Cambridge, Massachusetts. It is named for Henry Dunster, first president of Harvard College, 1640 to 1654. The tower is inspired by, but somewhat smaller than, the famous Big Tom Tower of Christ Church, Oxford. So some of our UK listeners can say, how does that compare to Big Tom? What's it with all the big guy named clock towers or towers in England? Big Tom, Big Ben. Are there others?
No, Big Larry.
Larry, the ultimate UK name, the ultimate Englishman. All right, then, I'm Larry. Larry,
sounds
Larry
right.
the Brit. The postcard says, Nate, here's to you as we see Steve Morse for ya. It's signed by you, Ole, John, Peter, Mark, and Steve. And this is probably shortly before Rich joined you.
Yes.
And I did get a picture of because now when you guys are together, I get a picture of the Gardeau actually putting it in the mailbox. It's postmarked. What is it? Boston, Massachusetts. Massachusetts. Very cool. So I'm sure he must have dug this out of his ode. So you were in Somerville, not too far from here. Put that in.
I don't question the postcards. Just.
You just sign where Pete says to sign. One of these days it's going to be a contract. You're going to be screwed.
Yeah, I mean, we're usually just sitting around having a drink, talking, and then all of a sudden, Pete will just nudge you, and he'll just put a postcard in front of you.
Postcard, a pen, a coaster.
pretty much. He won't even say anything. He'll just put it down and just motion for you, come on, sign it. And I mean, and we all know it's you, at this point we're just oh, okay, we're not the fuck is this?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's routine now. I'm gonna put this in my Deep Purple postcard bin, and I don't say that because it's only Deep Purple related postcards. I say that because it's actually a nice deep purple color. Pete sent me that a while ago, and I said I didn't know where to put these postcards, and it's really, I should actually show you. This thing is really full.
Wow.
So I try to keep it in semi-chronological order. But if I tighten it up, it's probably about 60% full.
Yeah.
I got, speaking of Big Ben, I got a little Beefeater right here.
Your little Don King microphone.
Don King, a Beefeater, resembles a lot of things. Yeah, here we are today to talk about the one and only Roger Glover as Postcards for the Edge winds down here. Yeah, I mean, where do you start? I was trying to think, so the way I got into Deep Purple, as we've probably said a million times, is through Jesus Christ Superstar. I saw Jesus Christ Superstar. Paul's mom had made us copies of the album, listened to it, and then I remember she had photocopied the booklet. I shouldn't be telling about what's the statute of limitations on piracy.
I mean, it's probably expired, right?
Which is the funny thing, because I've probably bought, I don't even know, a dozen copies of Jesus Christ Superstar since then on CD, vinyl copies, the 50th anniversary release.
You've made up for it.
You name it. I've bought. I think I bought the digital. Yeah, I think I bought the digital download and the physical copy of the 50th anniversary. So I've got so many copies. In fact, I went to a record store recently and got. They had a beautiful copy of $5 for the double vinyl US release with the booklet and everything. I was like, He's like, I just have to buy it again. Just $5. I'll just have another copy. It was just so reasonably priced. But so she that like long thin booklet that came with the vinyl. She made like a copy of that. She even made like the outside of it yellow and the inside pages with a staple so you could turn them and everything. So me and Paul looking and he had a copy as well, even though it was from her copy. But you're reading the booklet and this person appears courtesy of this and that, and Ian Gillan appears courtesy. Oh, he has his own group. It's called Deep Purple. Whoa, we got, he'd heard of Deep Purple, but didn't realize. So we start getting into it. But I'm trying to remember what's the day or the time or the moment that I was aware of Roger Glover individually. Like, when did I figure him out? Can you have any memory of that? Like, of a first introduction to him?
There's this picture, and I mean, if you saw it, you'd know. And it's like a famous Mark II picture, and it's all of it. It's like a studio picture, like it's a posed photograph. And it's if I find it, I'll send it to you. But it's pretty popular. But they pretty much printed in all the magazines when they were talking about Deep Purple. And so I just remember, like, okay, it's these bunch of guys, like, super long hair and everything, and they look different from other 70s bands, because usually they all had, like, they all looked like John Lord. They had like walrus mustaches, and they weren't that like distinctive looking, but most of them, like most of the guys in the band were even though we talked about style a little bit, they had a different look. They didn't look like this scruffy band. Like they they looked different. But the one that I remember was like Roger, because he had that big floppy hat on that he wore like in the early 70s, and like a little beard and everything. And I used to think, like, oh, he's like a Geezer Butler. Because that's what I used to think, is like him and Geezer looked like exactly the same, which if you put them side by side and you didn't know who they were, you'd be like, oh, okay, these guys are probably brothers or something. So I'm just like, oh, okay, so all 70s bass players have like, long hair with a part in the middle and like a mustache. And
that's the uniform, the official uniform.
Which they did. But anyway, that was my first, like, that's when I was like, he stood out like visually. Of course, like, Gillan did, because he was like, really good looking front man, and, John Lord. And like, it's weird because all these guys have, a distinct look, even though they don't. It's not, it's not this one that you showed.
No. This is what I started looking for when you, when you started talking, and then you mentioned the floppy hat, but this is, what
it's
I think
a little
is
later than this,
which is believed. This is 69, and this is, I think, believed to be the first official photo shoot of Mark II, and I think this was like in September or something of that year. So it was like shortly before the concerto.
I think it was a like a Machine Head photo.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a cool one. I don't know that I'd seen this one, or I haven't seen it very often.
The thing I like about this one is it like Roger Glover's dead center. It's like, this is my band, bitches. You know what I mean? He's like, he's got his arm crossed. He's like, yeah, these guys back me up. All right. I know that's not his attitude, but it's just, if you didn't know, it's just kind of funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, that's, I guess, when I first became aware of him. So yeah, he definitely stood out. And then just all the that, and like the stories of like, I always thought it was interesting because like him and Gillan were like a package deal, because in all the early stories that I read, it was just like I never questioned it. I was like, oh, okay, that's just how things are. It's like, him and Gillan joined the band. Him and Gillan left the band, and then Gillan came back to the band in '84, and it was like, it was really, and until like the early '90s when Gillan left on his own, and then I'm like, well, that's the end of that. But it was a really, like, I thought it was an interesting dynamic that they just kind of came in together and left together, because I thought like, oh, okay, maybe that's just like that's when I thought that. You didn't, when you were a kid, you didn't think about the music side of it, because you thought like, oh, well, they kicked out Roger's best friend, so he said, well, I'm leaving too.
Yeah, screw you guys.
Like, Right. So it's like, so I think that kind of kind of his look in comparison to the rest of the band, and then like him and Gillan kind of like joining and leaving together kind of made him stick out in like the Deep Purple story. When I was learning about them, because it's like, you only read what was, whatever was written about him, kind of like the surface synopsis, and then in 69, like Gillan and Glover joined, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess they like. I mean, I don't know why they joined together, but I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's just like it's very often described like very clinically.
Yeah.
And and the real story is it's just kind of a lot messier.
Yeah. And I mean, we've since figured that out, but
right. And it's when you start to really dig into it, you find out it's messier. And I don't even mean messier in like a bad way, but just kind of like organically the way that things have happened. Like, well,
it's more complex,
a bass player. Yeah, I got a bass player and he can write songs. Okay, cool. I'm wondering if this is the picture that you're talking about. If you forgive the watermarks, because there's a few from this era. This is the one.
Yes, it is. That's it.
Yeah, yep, Glover and John Lord looking absolutely massive.
Yeah, but that was there was something about maybe because like Glover was center again centered in that pick, but yeah, that was the one, and you could probably post it in the show notes, but this is the one that like Circus and Hit Parader and all the magazines like in the 90s would publish when they were talking about Mark II, like classic Deep Purple, or from then 20 years ago Deep Purple. Like that was the photo that they would use. So this one's like burned into my brain, and I guess visually Roger being like pretty much like centered in the picture, I'm just like, who's that guy?
And Ian Pace's shirt, I'm sure, made a big impression on you, so you had to go get your own.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't see it, it's a black with the white polka dots, my signature.
John's trademark. It's interesting because I don't know what they have. They must have Pacey standing on a stool or something. He's towering over Richie and Roger, even though he's probably shorter than both, or at least the same height as Roger. But yeah, like they have, I don't know if they're like varying, like if Ian and John and Roger are sitting on stools, and Ian standing on a platform and Richie standing on the floor. But yeah, they're all kind of staggered in an odd formation. But it's cool photo. I don't know. I'm having such a hard time. I think probably my first realization of who he was probably through Paul being like, he's like, we talked about on the Highway Star episode how Roger's bass playing is just so much more than what you really comes through on the record and all that sort of stuff, all the stuff that he's doing in the background. Paul has always had like this just like perfect ear. He can pick things out so well. He can just go to a piano or a guitar, and for whatever he lacks in like technical prowess on the instrument, he can pluck away or bang away at it and find the notes, almost making no mistakes. He understands the mechanics of how a guitar works and the mechanics of how a piano works. What's a half step and a whole step, and he sees things in it. He doesn't have a perfect pitch, but he sees things in his mind. He's like, oh, that's probably a whole step. No, that was a whole step and a half. And within minutes, he can just figure out, oh, this is what he's playing. And when he started to learn how to play the bass, he would just, he would play these things. And he was really channeling Roger Glover, and he loved Roger Glover's bass playing. And I think he was hearing something in music that honestly I never heard. As far as Roger's bass, I always loved Roger Glover as a producer, as a bass player and all that. But he was, I think, light years ahead of me in understanding the genius behind his playing. And I think back then we didn't really have any concept of what his role was in the songwriting process. We knew he was involved. We knew he co-wrote songs, but at that point, I don't know if and it varies band by band. Like, what does songwriting mean? Sometimes you write the full guitar part or bass part or something for a song, you don't get any credit. Drummers almost never get any credit. And they're coming up with, you think of what Pacey brings to the table, or somebody like Ringo, whose drumming was so integral to the sound of that band. He wasn't just playing the standard, hi-hat, snare. He's playing all these really inventive, weird ass drum beats that no one else on earth would have ever thought of playing, for as much shit as he gets about being not the technically best drummer. But he didn't get writing credits on most of the songs either. So it's like, how does a bass player get credit? And what I probably didn't realize then is, and what I realize now is, it's through the arrangements and the chord progressions and a lot of lyric writing. And you invoked Geezer earlier, another bass player that was
very creative,
very creative lyrically and
lyricist wise. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like him, Geezer, like Bob Daisley is another one in the family, like just very, very talented beyond just being a bass player. But I think you're right. That just did kind of spark a memory. Paul was primarily a bass player. So when we got into Deep Purple, he was just like, I think he just kept talking about, how great Roger Glover was. And we're just like, oh, yeah, Paul would say that. He's plays bass. So of course he would focus on the bass player of whoever was in the band. So whenever we talk about Deep Purple, he would always be like front and center in the discussion. And then when we got when I got a copy of Denmark 72, I think that might have been the first time that I saw them like a performance of them. And I even remember like on VHS just thinking like how clear and like how almost like you were there, except it was black and white. And I'd never seen him perform before, and just like I want to say I mean, Richie was probably the most animated on stage, and Roger wasn't. But I mean, it was very interesting just watching him play, because he just kind of had this kind of like he kind of swayed back and forth, and he seemed very like laid back, but also like really interesting. Like he was almost like the opposite of everybody else, because like in that video, like, Lord is rocking the Hammond, and Gillan is swinging his hair around, Richie's swinging the guitar around, Pacey's, he's very animated on the drums, and Roger, he's just like kind of, swaying back and forth at the hips, just playing his bass. He's not really doing that much. And like, there were a couple of times where he was looking over maybe at Richie or, John Lord or something. They were like, smiling or exchanging words back and forth. And I just always thought like, well, that's really, interesting to see that.
Yeah.
But, like I always had that feeling like that video, it gave me that feeling like, this guy's like he seemed like he was really into it. Like he wasn't animated. So he was like focusing on his playing. And, he was like the anchor that held Deep Purple together. And, who knew, I mean, it was very, maybe you'd say it was very like an intuitive feeling, but, I wasn't wrong.
No, not at all. And and I think that he's got that floppy hat look in that video that you're referencing. It looks like it was recorded around the time of that picture we just showed. And I think that was probably a big moment for me. I remember with you within if it wasn't the same night, it was like 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row that we watched Denmark 72, we watched the Concerto, and we watched Cal Jam. Yeah. And obviously Cal Jam doesn't factor into this discussion today, but those other two, and I still think of, his performance at the Concerto and thinking like, geez, the pressure. And of course, like John Lord had most of the pressure, but to be thrown into this band a few months in, it's like, oh, by the way, we're performing a Concerto. It's like, God, like what do I know about a Concerto? How can I play that?
Well, see, I didn't know any of that, because if you're thinking about back to then, I just thought like it was so cool that these guys were playing with them. Like, I mean, we know all the background stories of how the pressure was on Lord, how Richie didn't want to do it. Maybe the band might have been feeling some nerves from it. But all I saw back then when I heard the recording or I saw the video was just like, how badass is that? There's this like 60s band playing with like an entire orchestra. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and to your point, 90% of people watching that would also think the same thing. It's just this is something that was planned and they did it and great and it's awesome. Right. Whereas hearing all the behind the scenes or knowing how new Ian and Roger were to the band and just Roger just getting up there and just being up in front of the Royal Albert Hall after, a few months earlier, just playing these small clubs with Episode 6, had to have been an incredible feeling.
But again, he had that, like, when you watch the video, he had that really kind of calm demeanor that, like, it looked like a real focus on his instrument or what he was playing. Like, even now, it's just like you don't think that he's not really like a showman. Like, you could tell that he is. He's just he's focused on his playing. Like, you see some of those guys that are playing and they're like pointing out into the audience or nodding down and pointing to people or whatever. And it's just like, even in the recent shows that we've seen him, he just looks like he's, focused on his craft. And I mean, and we know Deep Purple's never been a band that's been performers, really, not like a band like Kiss or anything.
Yeah, like not performers, me just not like overly theatrical.
Entertainers. Yeah, so it's the being entertaining was never the thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna wear these flashy clothes or do these like crazy stage moves or anything. So it's like, even to this day, like,
not doing a giant like jump into a split like David Lee Roth. Seeing Ian Gill do that now would be pretty impressive, I gotta say. But
I think seeing him doing it at any point.
But he's not like, even not that we're talking about Gillan per se, but he's not going around this tour like Ozzy clapping and throwing water on the audience. Like, they're all engaged with the audience, but not they're not like hamming it up like some people do.
Right. So it's Purple and Glover in particular have always been performers but not entertainers, which I think if you're a good enough performer, if you have good enough songs, if you're a charismatic enough person, then that's enough. For some bands, because you could take a band like Deep Purple and a band like Kiss, which are like two of my favorite bands. You'd be like, how do you enjoy both of them? And I mean, both of them, the songs are there, but watching them visually is like much different. Like, you can enjoy both, but there's just something about the charisma of the players in Deep Purple, and in particular Roger, because and who knew back then that he was just more than a bass player. Which, once you move past Deep Purple, like after he left Purple the first time, it was like, and I can't remember when I discovered the Butterfly Ball or how, but I just saw like Roger Glover and Guests. He had a solo album, and I'm like, okay.
Did you even remember where you found it?
I mean, it had,
because it was really hard to find in the States at that time.
Well, I mean, it had to have been at Sam's.
Yeah, I guess.
It had to have been a cassette or maybe a remaster of like a CD or something. Because I mean, that's one thing is like, I think for us,
you definitely had the cassette.
Yeah, I can remember having that. So it must have been. I mean, all I know is like whoever did like remasters, like when they were re-releasing stuff, like must have been Rhino or whoever was doing like Deep Purple related stuff in the early 90s. They did a great job with it, because who knows if guys our age would have even discovered them if they weren't kind of pushing out that content. Like, how else would I have found the Butterfly Ball? But
yeah, well, it was the Connoisseur collection that like the stuff that Simon Robinson did. We did all the CD releases, and I want to say the Butterfly Ball one is like 89 or 90. So it would have been shortly
Maybe.
before you got it. But the cassette you had was a little different because it didn't have Little Chalk Blue on it. But I remember just dubbing that off of you and listening to it until I wore the tape out and just hunting endlessly for that damn CD.
And maybe I found it at I mean, I would like frequent like used record stores and things like that, and so maybe it was just like luck that I came upon Roger Glover and Guests. But I mean,
I just recognized the name and was like, oh, let's check this out. It's $3 in a bargain bin or something.
Exactly, yeah. And even at that time, and I mean, I didn't hear like until years later. Like I wasn't really aware that he was a producer, or like I kind of knew he was in Rainbow. Yeah, and then like the Gillan Glover, which I think came next, Gillan and Glover. I wasn't sure how Roger fit in. I just figured like, oh, okay. Like I didn't get the concept of like when you're a musician, like when I was a kid, right? When you're a musician and say you're like a bass player, right? All right. So he played bass on this. Like he had his own solo album. Like who wrote the songs? Like you know what I mean? Like I didn't know that it was all him. I just thought you could just be one thing. Like I don't know.
How can you write songs? You're just the bass player.
I don't know why, but I mean, I just always thought like, okay, if you're a guitar player, Like I had no concept of like somebody that was like, a virtuoso. They could play multiple instruments or write songs or have ideas or, you know what I mean? Like I never knew that individuals function like that. And that was really, it sounds kind of silly now, very short-sighted of me, but I mean, I didn't know.
Well, you're talking about we were kids. I mean, we didn't know how any of this stuff worked.
Right.
I want to say I got into Deep Purple when I was probably already playing or just starting to play a little bit. Because before them, I would say it was like Cliff Burton for me, like as a kid learning bass in the, late 80s, early 90s. It was hard to top Cliff Burton. And you just like, the first thing I ever asked my bass player to teach me was the Anesthesia bass solo. It took like 3 months because I was just like starting. And he's like, okay, that's a little to his credit, he didn't like say, okay, well, why don't we start with Mary Had a Little Lamb or one of those Mel Bay books or whatever. It was like, no, I'll teach you, but it's going to take some time. And then to like go from that to Roger Glover was like a big difference. But I think the thing that I liked about Cliff Burton was kind of his involvement in the songwriting process. And as a bass player, that was what really drew me into Glover and later Daisley and even before that, Geezer Butler, like you said, is like, wow, this bass player who's, a little bit behind the scenes, but like kind of involved in the whole creative process. Cause that fit me and my style and my personality perfectly. Like, cause I didn't want to be like Mr. Frontman, center of attention, doing all that. But I wanted to be, and I was in the bands that I was in, involved in the songwriting and the backing and the production part of it and all that. Like, cause Glover was always my hero and my idol in that respect.
But you never see that. You know what I mean? Like,
right, exactly.
We never saw that. We never knew that. You thought like, oh, all right, so Roger's the bass player. You didn't realize that he was...
Right.
And that's what, like, with a lot of bands, too, because you see, like, the frontman, like, or the guitar singer combo, like, Gillan and Blackmore, like one of the best examples is like Aerosmith, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, and you think, oh, okay, and all the other guys are just like background noise, and it's like you don't realize how much some people contribute to the whole project. And Glover was like, I didn't know he was a producer or that he was a writer or that he was so creative, and as we found out later, was like creative beyond like music too. But listening to the Butterfly Ball, there was something about that where, even back then, like you'd think like, okay, this isn't in my wheelhouse, but I was like, all right, this is great. This is cool because it fell into that same mold, I think, as Jesus Christ Superstar was. It was still kind of like had a rock edge to it, but it was like, it was like a musical, and it was kind of like, there was some whimsical things in there. So it's kind of like, it satisfied that other kind of part of my musical, tastes. And I mean, I didn't get into much musicals, like just Jesus Christ Superstar was pretty much it, because it was a rock musical. And I feel like Butterfly Ball was, for lack of a better word, kind of similar, which is why, like, if somebody looked at that and they're like, how do you like that? It's like, that's how I would explain it. But I didn't realize, like, how much, even though Roger's name was on it, like how much went into it. I mean, there was like, a video or a TV special or whatever, a concert special of it. And then, to hear that he had all these other people in it too, like Hughes, Dio, Coverdale were all in it. I was like, how did this happen? I think that was kind of like the awakening of just like there was a Deep Purple family, because it's just like he's got guys that like worked in the band and with Richie and this and that and everything, and like how is this happening? Like they're all one big family. They all know each other.
Well, and you start to see, where it branches off, and I think a big part of the novelty for us too is like, that's like Ronnie James Dio is on this, and he's singing these, like, we had never heard. This is before we had heard Elf or any of that. So here we are hearing Dio sing these like ballady kind of songs, or things we weren't familiar with him singing, and that was just kind of mind blowing to me.
Well, yeah, because we're used to hearing Stand Up and Shout and The Last in Line, and then we hear him singing like
about a frog
sitting in a dream, or
or being a frog. It's really interesting, and and then of course there, at a certain point you learn that there's this history, but not a huge history, but a history before Deep Purple with episode 6, and then that's where some more of the pieces of the puzzle come together, because you hear this band that Roger was involved with in the same way, bass playing, some backing vocals, songwriting, but it's very hippy dippy 60s. All of these songs about, the song about his, Beach Boys sounding things, and when my trumpet blows, or whatever that song is. Hearing these things, it's a double whammy to learn that it's like these two guys, and it still is shocking to just think of the way they scouted them. There's a story, I think it's John Lord and Richie, or Richie and Ian, or whatever, went to go see episode 6, and you just see them on stage, or Icy Trumpets Blow, or the what's a song about the car, the mighty
I can't remember any of it.
Mighty Morris 10, or what's it? It's something like that. I can't. But anyway, to see them in the audience and be like, that's what we need, like they're formulating in rock, and they're like, that's what's going to take us to the next level. I see trumpets blow, na 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 na. But that's, you've got people that are really, really smart about music, and far be it from me to make a sports analogy, but I've been watching all this baseball, because Jen is a lifelong Toronto Blue Jays fan, growing up in Toronto, and they're in the World Series, and it's like super exciting. And there's this guy, Alejandro Kirk, on the team, and he's this little pudgy guy. And the story is this guy who scouted him, like, called the team and like, listen, I'm going to send you this guy. And like, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to like what you see. Because he just shows up, you're like, how this guy, and he's incredible, and he's so good. He's hitting home runs, and he's this amazing catcher, and he's got all of these skills. But that's like the genius of the scout watching this guy play and saying, this guy, people are overlooking talent that this guy has that could be super valuable to us. And it's the same thing here, where it's like, we really want to go in this hard rock direction. And then you go up and you see, they're doing hippy dippy covers of Beatles songs or whatever. But to have the musical IQ to hear that and say, these guys are going to take our band to the next level and be absolutely right is just something else. And they were right about Ian and they were right about Roger. Couldn't be more right. Would Deep Purple Mark II have blown up the same way if they had not gotten Roger or not gotten either of them? Maybe not. But yes, bringing it back to the Butterfly Ball, yeah, it's very hard for me to remember. I remember hearing it from your tape and thinking like this is the piece of music that's been missing from my life. Like just like, when you just hear something, I can't believe this has existed and I didn't know about it. Yeah. I want to know everything about it. I want to have everything involved with this act. And then you get this thing that's the Butterfly Ball plus, we threw in a few songs from Wizards Convention. Oh, guess what? Roger Glover's also on that. Be like, oh my God, there's more stuff. And it's yet another teaser because it's not the full Wizards Convention. And it's 1993. And good luck finding either of those albums in any form in America. And then when you eventually get them and dive into them and find that there's just so much more there and it goes so much deeper. And that's how it always was with Deep Purple. And it always, even to this day, gets deeper all the time. You just say, oh, here's another connection. Like we'll talk about on our next episode is, I'm over my buddy's house and he says, I inherited all these LPs. Let's go through them. You can take what you want. I'll take what I want. And then I'll just donate the rest. So we're hanging out and just going through records. Oh, Firefall. That's a band with Jock Bartley who took over for Tommy Bolin and Zephyr. I'll take this one because I don't really, all I know about them is from the 70s Weekly podcast. I'd love to check them out and hear more about what they're about. But, this is just a few weeks ago and you're still kind of discovering. I didn't even know about that band. I would have totally passed over that LP if it wasn't for them talking about it, for Mark and Pete talking about it on their show. All right. Well, you know what? Let's take a break there and thank some patrons. We can get into more Roger Glover talk. So our next level of patrons is, of course, the core level patrons, foundation level, core level patrons. At the $6.99, the Nice Price Plus tier, we have Spike the Rock Cat's Ghost and Sugar Tea. At the $6.66 tier, we have Steve Coldwell, Arthur Smith,
getting support from the patron Arthur Smith,
Anton Glaving,
pain in the glaving,
and Charles Meadows. At the $6.65 Almost Evil tier, Kenny Wymore, Richie Sucksmith. At the 70 Norwegian kroner tier, we have Kai Runa, yes, I'm Norwegian Olsen.
It's a great life in the Norwegian.
At the $5.99, the Nice Price tier, Robert Smith and Adrian Hernandez. At the 60 kroner Scandinavian Nights tier, DJ Newt Martin Johansson.
It's a great life in the Norwegian.
At the €5.50 tier, we have Merline Rota. At the £4 Lucy 4 tier, we have Duncan Leask. At the $5 Moneylender tier, John Convery, German Heindel, Jesper Alman, Alexei the Perfect Stranger Slepikoff, Kev Roberts, Scott Zerns, Cynthia Doobie, Raf Kaff.
My Czechoslovakian is not so good.
Coyote Bongwater. John Maselli.
Oh, wait a minute here. You're all fogged up here. Let me defog you.
Sarah Sanders.
No, Kelly Clarkson!
Jelly Robeson, Jelly Bean, Evan Robeson, Purple Swede, and Ralphie Lee.
I hope to meet you again real soon. You have a good deep purpley day.
Thank you so much to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast. You looked like you had something to interject there.
No, I was just laughing because I'm just like, that's the funniest mashup that I've heard. Jelly Robeson.
Jelly Robeson. Well, it's like Jelly Roll. It's a Jelly Robeson. I just went right into it.
Whoops.
Isn't there like a singer Jelly Roll? It's like,
I don't know.
Do you lose like a bunch of weight? I don't know. I just see these. Google News thinks I'm interested in these things, and they're like, sometimes the headlines are like, so-and-so does this with so-and-so, and so-and-so can't believe it. I'm like, who are these people? But like, Jelly Roll, who are these people? But exactly. Jelly Roll, yeah, he's a singer, and like the latest thing they've been feeding me, Jelly Roll is unrecognizable in his amazing weight loss transformation. I'm like, he'd be unrecognizable to me before it. I don't know who these people are. But I assume he was a hefty man because he lost like 200 pounds.
So what is he now? Just like jelly? Just no roll?
No roll. He lost his jelly rolls, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's another Ozempic transformation. I don't know. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Jelly Roll. We're not the world's experts on Jelly Roll. We're not the world's experts on anything, but we're still going to talk about Roger Glover. So obviously that was like the pivotal moment, I think, for all of us was for all of us on this call.
All of us, the both of us,
all two of us. I
think so. I think that was definitely the moment that I was said, okay, there's more to Roger than I thought there was.
And he's funny enough, like not even really playing bass on it. You know, Mo Foster's doing most of the bass on the album. He's producing. He's did all the songwriting with Eddie Hardin, and Ray Fennick as well. And he's playing Moog synthesizers. He's playing piano. He's playing acoustic guitar. He's just kind of like, to be able to do something like that's just unbelievable.
Right. So, I mean, in the progression after that, I knew that he, like, for some reason joined Rainbow. I'm like, okay. I thought him and Richie didn't like each other.
Yeah, right.
Like later he was the producer and then joined them as a result and played with them for a while before the reunion.
And we've already talked about, his production on a couple of episodes, and he produced Nazareth. He produced, of course, our favorite Barbi Benton album. He produced Judas Priest, and even ended up setting them up with Les Binks on drums, I believe. And he was this kind of like guy who, like, the Butterfly Ball sparked these things. It sparked, for one thing, Ian Gillan came to do the live performance and decided, you know what, I'm going to come back to music after that. He's doing Roger a favor because Dio couldn't perform, and then sees the reception he gets and says, well, I'm going to come back to the music industry, and ends up hooking up with people that were there. Mark Nossif was performing that night. Ray Fennick was performing that night. Mickey Lee Sewell was performing that night. John Gustafson, the whole Ian Gillan band was performing that night, and they all kind of linked up together. Roger Glover produces Coverdale's solo albums. There's all of these connections that happen off of this. Les Binks gets John Lawson gets recommended to Uriah Heep because he comes and does his song and actually almost steals the show that night. So you've got all of these amazing connections. And Roger was talking in an interview. He produced Judas Priest introduced them to Simon Phillips when things didn't work out with Les Binks, and says he was still never paid for the album, which is a bummer.
But I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like not even until like then we found out, okay, Roger Glover, like, you know, you would see like produced by Roger Glover, and at first you're just like, oh, okay, you know, he whatever. But then you find out that he was producing other bands, so you're like, oh, he's a producer, right?
Yeah,
because he produced Elf,
right. Yep, of course.
Right, and then like you said, like Nazareth, Down to Earth, like, you know, a bunch of Rainbows. His own stuff, like Mask and Gillan and Glover.
Mm-hmm.
The what'd you say, Judas Priest, which I never knew. Is still one of the '70s ones, but still, you know, it was like Michael Schenker.
Right. Yeah. It's almost you have to look at a list because it's impossible to keep it all in your head, you know.
Right, but then you're just like, oh, okay. So and didn't he say before that he was he learned from the early days, like from Martin Birch and from, you know, the producers that he was working with, like how to do this, how to do that, and then he found his niche and like in being able to do that, like you had a ready-made producer right there. So there was, you know, more. I mean, I know he didn't always want to do it for Deep Purple. He would rather focus on performing. But going off and producing other bands was a way that he could still, you know, be creative in another way and contribute to other projects. And so even if it's not Deep Purple, or even if he didn't play on it, like some of the Rainbow stuff, like the one that I didn't know until recently. And if you listen to the Michael Schenker episode, it's like, you're like, produced by Roger Glover, bass by Mo Foster, you know, like, Don Airey, you know, it's like, I was like getting more and more shocked, like with like reading all the credits and everything. And it's just like, now you're getting into like you can get into bands through Roger being involved with them and not necessarily like playing on it, but he still has a stamp on it. And so that's another way that I discovered music, be it like years ago or even recently, like that example. And that, you know, opened me up to discovering even more great music and things that he was involved with. So
yeah. And I think there's the thing that I love, and it's not just Roger Glover, but a huge part of it is when you listen to those albums, you're like, yeah, of course. This is like, it has this, it's kind of like Martin Birch, right? You hear a Martin Birch production and it almost doesn't matter who's playing. But with Roger Glover, you also get this combination with Roger Glover and with Martin Birch, this similar styles as well. So they probably have similar like musical aesthetics of what they're looking for maybe as a producer. And when we were younger and finding out about production and stuff, you really don't know what a producer is. And nowadays you really don't know what a producer is because it could mean almost anything. It could mean that they did nothing and just financed it, or it could mean they were like the mastermind behind the entire, and anything in between on that spectrum. But I feel like what you're getting with Roger Glover or Martin Birch for the most part is someone who's hands off in a, like they're not like probably like the Bob Rock style, right? Where it's like, no, play that guitar solo 15 more times and we'll see which one we want, you know. It's they're hands off to a degree and letting them kind of breathe creatively. And this is just my take. I could be totally wrong. But yet you've got this similar style, and some of it comes from, because Mo Foster's on all those albums, and you've got the Liza Strikes and the Barry St. John's and the Helen Chappelle's doing backing vocals. So that lends us a similar air, and so some of the musical parts, but there's something about what they were looking for and what they aimed for and what they captured sonically that it just sounds, to me, it's like a big cozy blanket. You know, if I hear that anything, that Michael Schenker album or those the first two David Coverdale albums, or
Yeah.
Butterfly Ball, any of that. It's just like, it's a warm blanket, and you just, even if you've never heard the album before, that you're just gonna be like, this is gonna feel comfortable.
Well, I think it's and the Coverdale albums I always forget about, because it blew my mind. I'm just like he worked with Coverdale on both of those albums. They weren't even in the band at the same time. Like, what was that like? That type of thing. But yeah, you hear the style of music, you hear like the sound, what's coming out of the speakers, and it's just it's like I feel like we're into the type of music that he has created. So obviously anything that he's involved in, it would be similar to our tastes, whether it's the actual music itself or like the way that he was producing it, whether it's like tweaking the knobs or making a suggestion for how to play something, or maybe like any of that stuff, you know what I mean? So it's not a stretch to see that, like, the different albums that he was involved in are all to our tastes, that we really like them, especially the early ones, like the early ones that he did. I mean, of course, he did all of his own albums too, like Butterfly Ball, Elements, Mask, which those were very different. But even I remember. Like Rich and a bunch of other, I think Scott talked about Snapshot, his solo album from his '02 solo album. And I remember I'd never heard it, and I listened to it, I think it was last year on the way up to New Hampshire when we went to see Deep Purple. And honestly, it wasn't like, the style of music wasn't for me. It was probably the first thing that I had heard that I didn't really like connect to, but I still listened to it, because it's like I had heard so much good things from our friends, and I'd never heard like a true, I guess, like Roger Glover band solo album. You know what I mean? Like he's done other stuff where it's just like studio projects, or like a big project or something, but not something like, okay, this is like, to me though, that was like, okay, this is like the Roger Glover band, where I don't know, forgive me, I don't know if he what he played on Snapshot, but I'm pretty sure he was a vocalist on it, right? He sang on it.
Not predominantly, I don't believe, but I think he did some vocals.
Yeah, I think he did. But I mean, it's like, and there's a difference too. Like, there were some musicians that when they do their own project, like, okay, this is just like personal and from me, and this isn't like a big collaborative thing, which is what I get the impression that one was like, his solo album, which is just like, this is my my thing. Sometimes I find it's like, that one didn't really hit with me, but I still thought that it was an interesting look. It was like a different style. I thought it was interesting, and that it was a different style than I thought he would do. And Rich had played some of those for me, like maybe a year or a couple of years earlier, when we were hanging out, and he was just like, oh, I really love this album, and he put it on. I was just like, oh, I didn't know that Roger kind of did that kind of like pseudo kind of, it almost sounded like the melodies and everything sounded almost kind of like reggae-ish a little bit, which is not my thing, but it's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that Roger would write anything like this, or like, this wasn't his style. So I mean, it's just, and even though I didn't love it, it was just I still liked it, because it just shows that he's so diverse. I mean, think of like all the different types of music that he has created in one way or the other.
I think as far as Snapshot goes, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I didn't really think about it. But yeah, it's more of like a band recording an album versus a lot of different session people coming in and out.
Right.
And that's what we're more used to. Wizards Convention, Butterfly Ball are more like, who's
like
around today, and while they may have, like, Butterfly Ball for the most part has like a backing trio of drums guitar and bass with Ray Fennick, Mo Foster, and Les Banks. But everyone else is kind of coming in and out with and, you know, Eddie Hardin does a lot of the pianos, but there's this song might have a violin, and this song has horns, and this song has different synth players, and every song has a different vocalist, and that kind of makes it. And Jesus Christ Superstar is much the same way in that there's like a sort of pretty core backing band with people swapping in and out, and then just this whole, obviously it's a musical, this whole cadre of rock singers coming in to sing the vocal parts. So yeah, that might be it. And that I would say Snapshot is more of a grower. Like it didn't really it didn't really totally grab me the first time, but the more you kind of listen to it, it's the more you can appreciate it. And the same is true of Mask. Like I remember getting, when those were released, getting Elements and Mask on the one, I think it was on one CD.
Yeah, I did.
And I'm listening to Elements and I'm like, oh, this sounds like, it sounds like the Butterfly Ball if the Butterfly Ball was 5 songs instead of 20. Very long songs, very drawn out, not a ton of vocals, very instrumental, but that same sound. And then all of a sudden, what the hell is this? When Mask comes on, it didn't compute with me. I'm like, and then I realized, oh, they're 2 albums kind of crammed onto one. That makes sense because this one was into the 80s. And I really didn't care much for Mask until I started to listen to it again after a long break. And my feelings on that kind of like 80s music had also evolved over the years. So in combination with that, I was like, oh, I really like this now. I like this. I think what I said on our episode years ago is it's like, what if Roger Glover made an album in the style of Duran Duran, you know? It's like, it's very cool and I love it. And Duran Duran's another one that I just did not appreciate at the time and then listened to later. I'm like, wow, Duran Duran was freaking awesome. You know what I mean? So, so I think with the later albums by him, it's a little, and it's different. It's different because like the production style has changed so much. And
well, I mean, look at Gillan Glover.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Which was another one, that one didn't shock me that much because I saw that and I was like, and I mean, I probably got that cassette like right around the time when it came. It must have just only been out for a couple of years. At that point, because I think it came out in like 88, I think, and
something like that, 87, 88.
Right, and then it was like, oh well, Gillan and Glover, of course, you know, they're the package deal. You know, they joined together, they left together, they're good buddies.
They share pants. Exactly. They have one pair of pants they share.
Forgot about that one, but yeah. So when I picked that up, it was like the music was like shocking to me because I thought like, you know, back then. I thought, okay, well, everything that they're going to do is going to sound like Deep Purple. But, like, and then when Clouds and Rain came on, like, for some reason, like, and you talked about the production, this super 80s production, like, even, like, when they did the cover of the Little Richard song, right, it sounded very, like, the whole thing sounded very, like, mid to late 80s production, everything like that. But for some reason, that hit the right chord in me. Like, I was like, I remember sitting there thinking like, I don't know why I like this, but I do. And it was like very, not in line with the heavier hard rock stuff that I listen to. But as we all know, you don't have to just like one type of music. And so that's why deep down I was really enjoying it and I didn't care, you know, because I'm like, yeah, there's all this keyboard stuff, but I didn't know how Roger fit into it. Like I knew that Gillan was the vocalist and I'm like, okay, but what's Roger doing?
Everything else.
I didn't know, you know what I mean?
Right,
it's just like, you know, but now I could see that he did all that stuff. It was just like, okay, so he played, I'm like, he played bass, so why is his name on this? Like, I didn't realize how much he was involved, but I was so happy that they had an album together. And the songs were great, and to find out later that he did so much more, you know, it was like this great, this kind of relief project for him and Gillan to kind of get away from the drama of Deep Purple and just put out a fun album, and that really, I think that showed through, and like the songs that they wrote, the song selections. So it was really kind of a diverse album, but it was also very unified at the same time. And I guess that ties back to like how you said, like if Roger Glover did a Duran album or something, like he was really embraced that kind of 80s production and discovering the different kind of instruments du jour at the time. And did a great job with it, because he wasn't just being trendy, like he was like exploring like new like ways to record. And because he's such a talented musician and personality, he was able to use that stuff, and it was like lasting. Like I could put on Gillan and Glover today and just be like, man, this is good. Not just like, listen to that, listen to that keyboard. You know what I mean?
Or that fretless bass.
Oh, I love that. That was one thing that stuck with me. Or that, like that drum machine. Like it fits in though. It fits in as a time capsule. Like you hear like the what was the I can't, like I know which song is it? It's just this really just big booming drum machine intro or whatever, and it's just one of the songs. It still fits into this day. And whether that was like his decision or Gillan's or both of theirs, or who knows, they just hit a button. It doesn't sound dated to me, and that's the thing is like his stuff doesn't sound dated, because I don't think that he was really trying to ever be a slave to trends. He was just a musician using all the tools at his disposal to just make the music that really spoke to him at the time.
Yeah, and inevitably it did change. Technology just changes things and changes the sounds. So when he started to have some of that stuff at his disposal, whether it was new synthesizers or new production equipment or new effects that could be used, so obviously it's impossible to not change. I think for me, Accidentally on Purpose was kind of like a fun listen once or twice, and then because it was just too close, like you said, we probably listened to it a few years after it came out, and I was really turned off by that sort of 80s production. But again, like Mask, going back to it, like love it, love the sound of it, and just it's such a fun album to listen to. Great songs, and you could tell even when we were kids going through that booklet, be like, look, they're just having a blast. Like the funny photo of like is it Glover yelling at Gillan, or like screaming at Gillan, and he's just like standing there, and like all the photos of them just like horsing around on the beach, and I forget what the island was that they recorded it on, was Montserrat. So like just it just looked like what these guys are. It was kind of heartwarming. It's like, oh, these guys are best friends. Like you said, they're the package deal, but they're also best friends. They're not like just, oh, we only work together. They're like, and they still kind of are, you still see photos of them. Roger Glover will have an acoustic guitar, and Ian Gillan will have a pen and a pad, and they'll be like working on songs even now for Deep Purple. And I'm sure that when that album came out, there were a lot of people who sort of stupidly were like, this doesn't sound like Deep Purple, which is, what's the point? They're in Deep Purple. They just did a Deep Purple album. They're going to do another one. What's the point of,
I don't
separating?
Think people think of that.
And there's a lot of people that do that. Like that, like I remember Dave Mustaine did that. Was it MD40 or something? What was that project he had?
Yeah,
it's just freaking Megadeth with different
people.
Like, it's different people. Like I picked up that album and I was like, well, like this would have been better if it was a Megadeth album. Like it's just it. And a lot of solo albums are that way when you realize, oh, this band is just this one person. But man, when Deep Purple does stuff like that, you've got John Lord composing concertos and symphonies. You've got Ian Pace doing like total like Buddy Rich jazz stuff. Richie's doing medieval Renaissance music. Gillan and Glover are doing 80s pop music. So it's and then they come together and are a hard rock band. So it's and even others, Don Airey comes into like this jazz fusion sort of background. Steve Morse is like this Southern fried quasi jazz stuff. So everyone's bringing like a totally different thing to the table. But then no matter who comes in and they're in Deep Purple, it's Deep Purple. There's, even when it was barely Deep Purple or you don't agree with it or whatever, it's still always Deep Purple. And then they all do their own stuff. And Roger Glover, God love him, did his own stuff to great effect.
And I mean, even now, he could be part of a legacy act, which I know that one thing that Scott has told me that he remembers Roger saying is that in the U.S. that's how Deep Purple is largely looked at, which is much to all of our chagrin, because they're not. Because even to this day, right, they've like he and the rest of the band are still working on new music, and you don't see people, a lot of people, or anybody in this genre that are still trying to create new music, because a lot of the thing is, rock is dead, nobody buys albums anymore, what's the point? Roger is such a creative force that he has to keep writing and recording new music. And some of this stuff, we genuinely love it. The last album, we were on like a high from that.
Yeah.
Like going to see the shows and like being into the songs. And it's like, it's a lot of fun, rather than like, how much fun would it be if we're just like, oh, Highway Star for the bajillionth time. Like, we still see it, but there's something new to talk about, and there's something new to like get excited about. It's what we wish that like all bands would do. I don't think that they're trying to recreate the next, Smoke on the Water, Woman from Tokyo, Perfect Strangers, what have you. They're just trying to make great music. That's what they've been doing for years, because they haven't really had another hit.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think that they were ever looking for that in the first place. It just happened. So.
Right. I think there was definitely a point like a long, long time ago, and they've said so in a bunch of interviews. And I always wonder, like, everyone's like, oh, we're not trying to be on the radio, we're not trying to do this. It's like, yeah, but I always wonder like how genuine that is. But I believe them. Like, I believe, I don't think they are, I think they are thinking clearly enough to know, like, we're not going to be the radio guys ever again. And for that reason, we can make whatever music we want to make. If we want to write a 3-minute song, we'll write a 3-minute song. If we want to write a 9-minute song, we'll write a 9-minute song.
Yeah.
And we're not doing this for radio play. And what are the odds that a band of 80-year-olds is going to be on pop radio? The music is not for, the music that's on the radio now is the music my kids are listening to. They're not going to break through again to the young teenagers. It's just not going to happen. There'll be people like us that might discover them. Right. I wonder about that. Like, what's the cutoff, or what are the bands that, like kids now are like discovering Nirvana and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, wow. Like, it's just funny. Like, that was like us discovering Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or whatever. So
except
there's always
those Sabbath and Zeppelin were better.
I knew you were going to throw something in there. But, like the kids in colleges now are listening to Sublime, and to that point, Pink Floyd, which is what was being played in colleges when we were in college and when our parents were in college. So there's always going to be this kind of rolling effect. But that being said, aside from classic rock radio, Pink Floyd puts out a new song, it's not going to be on the mainstream radio.
No, because they already made their mark, and it's timeless. Like even the other day, right? I heard it like a million times, but I had on like I was working last night, and I had on the classic rock radio on or something. Highway Star came on.
Yep.
Studio version. Still loved it. Still air guitared the solo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, because I was hearing it in the wild. It was like, it was part of that playlist. Yeah. And it's always gonna be great. And like, who knows, somebody 20, 30 years younger will hear that and they'll love it for the same reasons. It's timeless.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah.
But in addition to that, like, our experiences, like our feelings about Roger, like we can't forget that we've also met him.
Yes.
And that's another thing that I
forgot. No.
For a minute, I'm like, no, you didn't. How could you?
Oh, yeah. How could I? Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
Well, in preparation for the show, right, I was thinking about, like, all those things, like, how did we first, like, think about him, first impressions, like, how we were affected by him. And then I was thinking, like, well, the first time we met him, and I remember that was the Hard Rock when it was still COVID times, and we weren't even sure if we could meet him because we weren't sure if, like, they were still, people were still a little weary about like masks and stuff like that, and
the band was being very careful. Like they were, like, I think he was kind of breaking some band protocols to meet with us, which was cool. And of course, because of Rich, and if it was just us, he probably would have told us to piss off. But he wanted to see Rich, and we were lucky enough to tag along. But yeah, when we saw them, I think the night before, they were Don was at the bar wearing a mask, and so yeah, and like a bunch of people were around, like Tex and other people wearing masks. So yeah, it was a very different time. This would have been what, 2021?
Yeah. So I just I remember being like thinking like we were lucky enough, and owe it all to Rich and his connection with Roger. And I just remember, he's, I figured, like, I was just totally prepared to be like, yeah, this isn't going to happen, because that.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, what are the odds that we're going to have lunch with freaking Roger Glover, right? and it wound up happening. And I just remember us sitting in that place in the casino, the three of us, and then like Roger, like, coming over, and he was like, he was wearing the mask and everything. He shook Rich's hand and everything. And I was just like, holy shit, it's like Roger Glover standing right there.
It's happening, yeah.
Right? But then the whole time we had that, like, crazy, like, cafeteria lunch with him.
Yeah, like we're in like a college mess hall or something.
The college mess hall, or as Pops would call it, the chow hall. Like a chow hall lunch. It was nothing fancy, folks, as we said before. But I remember we tried to get
him to join us at a steakhouse either that night or the next night, but he was busy. I was that would have been a good dinner. That was a great dinner, even without Roger.
But it would have been much more fitting.
Yes.
But even though it's like I would say that, like, I just remember my impressions being is that, like, I'm not a great conversationalist around people I don't know. And, hard to tell, folks, because, like, when I'm in my element, I can just yap away like I am now.
Yeah.
But we were all sitting there, and I'm like, I don't have anything in, like, I mean, of course, I have, like, a million things in common with this guy. He doesn't know who I am. It's like, what do I say to him? And so most of the time, I was just, like, I was taking it all in. I was just listening to, like, basically you, him, and Rich talk. And so I didn't really have a lot to add. And even at the end of our lunch, when he's just like, is there anything you guys want to talk about or anything? And I'm just like, my mind went blank. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, but I still, like, I don't, like, despite that, it's like, I don't feel like I blew it because, like, quote unquote, blew it, because I don't know. I just think that a lot of people, like, your experience is what your experience is. And it's just like a lot of times, like, when I'm in a situation like that, people are like, oh, John, you're so quiet. And it's like, because I'm enjoying myself, like looking, being part of that moment, like looking in and just taking all of it in. Like, even if it's like it was the three of you guys talking and you were, to your credit, you would like, pulled off pulled up a couple of zingers about smoke on the water. I was kind of jealous, but it was like, but I mean, those are things that I was there for, and like I remember them, and they're part of my experience. So even if I didn't be like, "Hey Roger, what was it like recording with Richie?" Like I don't want to say something dumb like that. It's like, so I had like, unless I had like something legitimate to add. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, did you play on Shades of Deep Purple? Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay.
Hey, tell us about when you joined Deep Purple. What? No, I mean,
what's it like when you're on the stage playing Smoke on the Water? Every question is about Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. I just think that there's this misconception that like you have to there has to be a certain way for you to get the most out of an experience. And for me, a lot of times it's just kind of like if I'm not front and center, just being there and like observing it is really enough for me. And remember too, that was on my birthday. So it was like, all right, that's, kind of the coolest thing ever. We sat, we were able to chat with them a little bit, and Roger's kind of, I don't know, like, 'cause now that we met him a few times, or like, kind of been to hang around with him a few times, and he's, I don't want to say like he's got an outgoing personality, but at the same time, he's kind of quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, he's just a regular dude,
He's honestly probably pretty similar to us, because I'm the same way as you. I'm very reserved and very shy around people
reserved,
that I don't know. And I'm introverted. It just always is, and I'm always when I get into like a group like where there's a bunch of people I don't know, I kind of pull back, and and I've got Jen, and she can talk to anybody. She's like the Rich in that relationship, in which Rich will meet somebody or go up to some people, start busting their balls like within 3 seconds, and all of a sudden they're laughing and having a good time, and that's something I always admire, because I just can't do that. I don't do it.
Yeah.
I'd be too scared to try, and he's just like, oh, he just does it. And Jen's the same way, not maybe so much on the busting balls part of it, but anybody you put her in front of, she'll just start talking and find that common connection and just go with it. And but that being said, when we met with him, he made me feel so at ease. Like I just felt like, and part of it too is because like we outnumbered him, right? Like I knew you, I knew Rich, and it was Roger. So it was like I felt comfortable in that respect, but he was just so unimposing. Like it didn't feel, I mean, it was intimidating in a weird way, but not because of anything he was doing. Like he was just present. He was there. He was listening. He was making perfect eye contact. He was laughing with us. Like it wasn't, I didn't feel like I needed to perform. So I felt like so much more relaxed than I would have assumed I would, being in that situation, because I'm like, shit, this is like one of my biggest, if not my biggest musical hero ever. And I feel like it's just like chatting with friends, and what's better than that?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm looking up at them now because I have them on my wall. The pictures that we took with him afterwards. Like, I mean, he was just so whatever about like, yeah, let's just take some pictures. I remember on my camera roll, we have like some selfies that we took. I don't know if like Rich was holding the camera, and we just all kind of crouched in and took some selfies. And it was just like, it wasn't a big thing, it was just like, it was just like a get together of like, if you had like a bunch of friends together and you're like, all right, well, before we part ways, let's, take a few pictures, because, before we, so we can have a document of like when we hung out, that time. And then later on after the show, I remember he got to meet us in the casino at the bar where we saw OJ.
That's right.
But that's when I was like, I kind of like I don't know, I guess I found my moment, and I told Roger that he made the day really special. I said, because today's my birthday, and what a great birthday it was to have lunch with you and meet you and everything. And his response was so funny, because it was like, which now we know is very Roger. Was it like, he was just kind of like, birthdays, what if
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, it's just another day."
yeah, it's just another day. But I mean, he wasn't dismissive about it. That's just his
No,
that's just his sense of humor. But I mean, he was like still like you know what I mean? He wasn't like all like warm and fuzzy about it. He was very Roger about it, which
Well, I felt
thought
like that was kind of his way of, from my experience, just him always being humble, is just saying, "Oh, just you get to hang out with me, big deal." I was like, well, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
For us, that's a really big deal.
I mean, he said it about his own birthday, So
yeah, and that's why we're doing this episode. This episode will come out a day after his birthday on November 30th. But yeah, it was incredible. And then the funny thing to me is, at one point, we meet up at that bar, and it was all really, really young people. No, and he's not Tom Cruise, so nobody's gonna swarm him.
He's like our dad's age.
Like, they all know Smoke on the Water. Everyone at the bar knows it, but then they don't know who he is. So he's in the perfect sweet spot. He's got all the fame and notoriety and all that sort of stuff, but he doesn't have to worry about, can't go to the bathroom without somebody following you in. But then he asks us all, "Oh, hey, everybody, line up, and I want to take a picture of you." And I'm like, "What?" And he takes this picture of all of us, like you, me, Gardeau, Rich. I think Glenn was there, like a few other folks. And we're all like, okay. Why would you want a picture of us?
Yeah.
And it's just the thing to think of, like, there's a picture of me and Roger Glover's iPhone camera roll. It's just kind of wild.
Just someplace, yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do with this? Like, we're just some dummies you met at a bar that are fans of you, but just kind of shows the kind of guy he was. And he was good. He was like, that was their first show back after, all that time off for COVID. And he was, they were kind of nervous. Like, he was, Don seemed like kind of on edge, and Roger was, from what I can tell from a guy that I don't know that well, he was a little nervous before the show, and just kind of saying, "Oh, it's been a while since we played."
Well, because he said they were going on that cruise pretty soon, and they didn't want to, nobody, they wouldn't want anybody to get sick. And I remember later on, when we were lucky enough to meet Don backstage in a New Jersey show, and you and I told him, it's just like, "Oh yeah, you were on our show and everything, and we saw you in like in Fort Lauderdale, but you were kind of like set back and everything," and he was just like, "It would have been fine,"
Yeah, we're like, we didn't want to bother you, yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, you wouldn't have bothered me," but he was like, very, very nice about it. But
yeah, but you got to read the situation. You don't want to be one of those guys that's going over and just hounding them and trying to bogart all of their time. You've got to be cognizant of the fact, even in a situation. Well, that was like, they were at a bar, and we just happened to show up because of some sleuth work of some other fans. But in the meet and greets, obviously it's a little different, because that's what they're there for. And there was one of those other ones, and I can't remember if it was the New Jersey one or the Philly one, where Roger specifically referenced this day, because he was talking to Yumi and Rich, and he said something. You referenced, he's like, I'm going to be 80 soon. This was probably two and a half years ago. He's like, and he said something like, "That's hard for me to wrap my head around, that I'm going to be 80. And we were just like, wow. Yeah. And you're still doing it. And sure enough, when this comes out, he's been 80.
Well, I mean, Pops is going to be 80. Imagine Pops up on stage.
In his recliner, with his glasses down like this, holding the TV guide. Do they still make the TV guide?
I don't know, but I'll bet you there will be some people that listen to this show that would pay to see that. They're just, I want to see the famous Pops. But yeah, I would say that, like, we were lucky enough to be part of the meet and greets after the shows, and I think not Philly, Jersey, I think. I remember the Jersey one. And then, yeah, there was just one of them.
I'm thinking of the one where we're in that really, really tight space with the brick walls.
Yeah, that was New Jersey.
That was Jersey. Okay, yeah, that was where we had that specific conversation.
But I would say, like, you know, one of my favorites, right? Even though like we had lunch with them and we met them. No, we did meet them in Philly too, because that's when I was wearing the polka dotted shirt and I had them sign us.
That was when there was that room with that giant cheesecake, right? and we were both thinking, like, 'cause me and John both have a sweet tooth, so we're like,
should we get that?
Is that fair game? Just go carve into that cheesecake.
Was that left there from the Golden Girls meet and greet, or
the Golden Girls fan convention?
but no, that was another, like, I feel like our interaction with Roger in those next two, like Philly and Jersey, were a little more brief because there were a lot of, you know, fans there. There were a lot of people backstage, people that were, like, you know, chatting with them, some that wanted to get stuff signed. But I would say, like, one of the best experiences outside of our initial meeting with them, our lunch, was when we went to when we were in Michigan last year, and we saw them before the show. And the same thing happened in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire was probably, and Rich will corroborate, was probably like the best.
Of course, the one I wasn't at.
Sorry, Nate. but those two were very similar because they were before the show, so it was very limited. It was just like Roger had his guests, which were us, and then Simon and Don had theirs, and it was outside. It was very nice. And, you know, we got to chat for a while. It wasn't rushed like you'd think it would be rushed, because it's like, oh, we got to go on stage soon. But it feels like more rushed afterwards, because they probably, like, they did, you know, the show, the post. They're probably like, all right, I'm exhausted, I want to get home, type of thing. Even though I never got that feeling, but I mean, there were, like, less people. But I would say
the same in Chicago was that outside area that was elevated, that was, like, super cool, and it was a really nice space, and we even got to talk to Don a little bit, and that was
nice too, and he even got us some drinks.
He was like, oh, you guys got drinks, you guys don't worry about us. And it's
the Chicago one was really nice. And then I think it was like, it was a week after that, I drove up to New Hampshire and met Rich. And Rich brought his family, and we was like
Steve was there, right?
Steve and Rich's friend Kevin.
Yep.
And it was another outdoor backstage area, and it was gorgeous. It was like very New Hampshire, just like, you know, big, like, I think it was like a big, like, kind of like wooden gate or whatever, but you open up and there's like a fire pit back there, and like just the picnic tables, and it was just felt very New Hampshire, very big and wide open. And like Roger came over and we all sat down at a table and we had some drinks, and it was basically we're sitting outside, like at an outdoor patio at a restaurant or like a resort or something like that, and we were just chit-chatting with them the whole time. And it was just very relaxed, very, like, just a great vibe, you know, not rushed at all. And it was good too, because you had, you know, a bunch of different people there too.
It says a lot to his character too, that he just takes the time to be with fans. Like, obviously he knows Rich on a different level than us, and you know, wants to see his friend. But he doesn't have to do any of this for any of us. You know, he could just be like, no, I'm going to be in my dressing room until it's time to go on, or whatever. You know, he doesn't have to make the time, but he does. And I'm sure it's because he gets something out of it too. He enjoys it. He wouldn't do it if he didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to think he's a very social person. You know, he wants to, you know, he goes different places, and, you know, he has people that he knows there. And that's, you know, my impression is that's what he gets pleasure from, you know. And I think that's why, like, you know, he, you know, think about it, right? It's like, if you know that you're going somewhere and, like, you're going to be, there's an old friend or an acquaintance or somebody that you connected with, it's just like, you want to hang out with them, especially when you're a guy like him, you know, on the road, away from your family. You know, you want to hang out for a little bit, because, you know, he's essentially, like, you know, he's going to go to work after that. You know, and it's like,
Yeah,
You know,
Jen
that's
and
his
I,
job.
between me and Jen, we have so many friends and family all over the country, and there's been only one time we took a vacation where we weren't meeting with friends and families frantically, like every time we go back to Rhode Island or back to Toronto or Montreal, it's like that's where all of our families are from.
Yeah.
So it's just constantly trying to fit in all those meetings, and everywhere we go, like we have, we went to a trip to Minneapolis, we got friends there. We went to a trip to Madison, we got friends there. We went to a trip to St. Louis, met up with some friends, went to Boston, to DC, where Jen went to school. She's got a bunch of friends still there. So there's almost no place we can go where we're not just trying desperately to not pass up an opportunity to see an old friend or a family member or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's similar to him, and he's got friends all over the planet. I'm sure there's almost nowhere he can go where there's not going to be somebody that wants his time and somebody who he wants to spend time with too.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that just shows how amazing a guy he is. And again, they always say, the old expression, never meet your heroes. Well, so far, that expression has proved totally wrong with all the people related to this band that we've met so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't think anything less, I mean, we've had great experiences. I mean, I think these guys are all, you know what? It's like for all this success that they've had, they're performers, they're musicians. Like, yeah, they're not super famous, but they've definitely been in those circles. They definitely know that they're influential, that they're part of rock history, but have still remained just really humble, nice guys. Like, I mean, Ian Pace bought us a drink.
More than a couple, I think, actually.
I can't remember.
Yeah, he shouldn't have bought you a drink.
I mean, Roger offered to bring us drinks.
Yes.
I mean, Don was like just nice enough to talk to us even when he was there to meet with other people.
Yeah.
There's still hope. We haven't met Ian Gillan yet, but maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll see him wandering around shirtless and backstage, and he'll give us a high five. I don't know. But yeah,
that
I mean,
would be
it's
amazing.
I think
if you just like walked through and just kind of like, hey, and just that was it. Like that story, I don't know if it sounds true, but that story of Bill Murray, just, that story, you walked up. Did you ever heard that? He's at a restaurant. He just went up to somebody. He took a French fry off of their plate and ate it. And then he said, the worst thing is nobody's ever going to believe you.
That's awesome.
What a great thing to do.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like Roger and the rest of the band are very, have been very humble and accommodating and nice. And it's just like, I don't think that they've lost the script, after all their years of traveling and what they do and, what they have done and what they're still doing. And, there are some people that can be very cocky about it, full of themselves, like, do you know who I am? And
I can't imagine him saying that.
Yeah, these guys are nothing like that. And I think, too, it's because that everybody is, gives them the respect that they would want. It's just like, I think I've never seen anybody in the circles, like in any of these meetings that we've had that are acting like, yeah, Speed King,
well, right. And I think that's
like
kind of the point is like, and if we were dipshits like that, Rich wouldn't have opened that door for us. I think,
exactly.
He was very gracious to, and he wanted to. And I think he also was cautious and be like, I got a good thing going on here with my buddy. I'm not going to have these guys come here and freaking embarrass me.
But I don't think anybody was like that. That's the whole point.
Even when you were totally wasted meeting Ian Pace, you were just like nodding. You were like, you could tell that you were like not even hearing what he was saying. You were like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh boy.
That was the best.
You know what? At least I still met him, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the whole point. Is like us and everybody included. I think that Deep Purple and Roger have the kind of fans that, for the most part, are very aware that it's like you get back to the respect that you give, and everybody knows like, hey, you don't act like a dipshit or a drooling fan, then you're going to be able to talk to these people like real people, because that's who they are.
And most, unlike a lot of fan bases, I'd say 99.99% of all the other fellow fans we've met have had that same attitude, and maybe it comes from maybe it starts with the band too. I don't know, but people have been, even when we were brand new, when we had 2 episodes out, people were like so kind to us, and a few whatever hecklers or whatever, but for the most part, nothing like you'd expect. And I'm sure if this was insert band name here podcast instead of Deep Purple, we might have a very different experience. Actually, you guys don't know anything. You get a little of that, but nowhere near as much as I would have expected. But before we wrap up, I think we have to thank our last level of patrons before we wrap up and get out of here. And that is, of course, our foundation level patrons coming in at the £3.50 tier. We have the Deep Purple New York tier, I should say, Lord Longford. At the £3 aromatic feed tier, Simon Ford and Richard Brees. At the €3.50 tier, Weston Super Mayor Pilgrim. At the 293 pence tier,
Blackmore Tights.
At the €2.50 Too Many Tears tier, Soldier of Fortune. At the $3.33 Halfway to Evil tier, Stephen Sharp. And at the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, we have Peter Gardeau.
Skipity, Ohio Riz.
Ian DeRosier. Mark Roback. Stephen McCord. Ivan Fjellbu. Runar Simonsen. Ruinous Inadequacies, Corey Morissette. Joe Dopefish Sigler. Adam Cork, Tim Wood, Steve Down to Earth Kohler.
Make your love. All right.
Michael, Matt in Vegas, Jesus Christ Superstar. At the 10 Cold Hard Danish Kroner tier, we have Karsten Lau.
Cold Hard Danish Kroner.
At the $1 made up name tier, we have the Roger Gravelover, Leaky Mausoleum. Steven Somerville, the Concerto 1999 fanatic, Hank the Tank, Private Eyes, Ashen Lionel, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, Anders Engstrom, ICDC, Derple Purple, David Haddam, Graham Bonnet's Disco Pants and Haircuts.
I said, Graham, our audience expects you to be a bit more dirty.
Disco Pants and Haircuts, yeah.
I'm just going to put my guitar across his head.
Eddie Lyon.
Homosexual.
And Sick Tone.
Just about to close up the library.
Thank you so much to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast.
I don't know when I'm going to stop laughing at that.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know when that's going to stop being amusing, but that time is not today.
I hope it's never.
So, anyway, Roger Glover, what more can you say about a man that has given us so much joy and pleasure over the years through his amazing music and through his hospitality and hosting us, and like you said, running around like a crazy man getting us beers. Don't just show us where the beers are, we'll get them. But yeah, what a guy. And he held up after 2 back-to-back shows better than we did.
Actually, yeah.
So on that second night, we were like, and he's just like, hey, what's up? You want some beers? Like, oh my God, this guy's 80 years old and he's, I don't know how they do it. I do not. I don't know. I don't know if I could last 3 weeks on the road with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess we could probably like this could be like a friggin' double the episode. Like we could probably go another 2 hours talking about Roger. But yeah, like you said, he was important to us, influential. He turned out to be just a wonderful guy to meet, and been so gracious to us, and so now we even have better memories of him, and happy 80th Roger, and many more, and hope that we get to see him again. And
yeah, I hope we're doing talking about how I can't believe he's doing this at 90.
Yeah.
But yeah, good for him, good for us, and it's inspiring to see someone who seems to not take anything for granted and just enjoys life and is so kind and giving to his fans. Just unbelievable. We were treated worse by a member of the other band, or at least Rich was, than anyone that we came to see.
I'm trying to remember.
Rich's buddy Steve. Howe. Not Steve Morris.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say not Steve Morris.
No, Steve Howe.
I forgot.
No, remember he was just kind of like, just didn't seem to want to talk to Rich. Remember he was just like,
oh yeah, that's right. It was the guy that looked like the Crypt Keeper, right?
Yeah, which reminds me, I was at a record store yesterday and there was a Steve Howe album. I'll have to.
That's right, yeah.
I'll have to text it to the group.
Okay, you know what? God, that friggin' even forgot his name and everything. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, because Rich has got this great thing. He gives these pics to people and he takes pictures with them, and in memory of his nephew. And yeah,
that dude didn't even want to stop and like talk to him.
He was just kind of like, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody for listening, and celebrate. Put on your favorite Roger Glover related album today or yesterday on his birthday and celebrate. Is it Butterfly Ball? Is it Down to Earth? Is it Perpendicular? Is it Perfect Strangers? It could be anything. So much to listen to, or just maybe make a mix. Maybe make a Roger Glover mix and put it on shuffle.
I wonder. There's probably one on Spotify.
A Roger Glover playlist. Well, if not, I'll make one and put it in the show notes of some selections of Roger Glover brilliance. I don't think Barbie Benton's on Spotify though, so at least not that album.
All right, well, let's not go as far as to call that brilliance. Okay?
Sadly, we'll have to leave that one out. But all right, well, thank you so much, everybody, and we'll be back again next week on the Deep Purple Podcast.
Happy birthday, Roger.
If you like the Deep Purple Podcast and would like to support the show, please consider joining our Patreon or donating on PayPal. Patrons get full access to the podcast, Discord server, ratings, spreadsheets, and live stream invites. You can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow the show on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads. You can also check out the website at deeppurplepodcast.com for show notes and more. Contact us via email at John or Nate at deeppurplepodcast.com. Thanks for listening.